to another episode of the Modern Manifestation Podcast. I'm your host, Bree Brown, a lettuce-hating, wine-loving, curses like a sailor, recovering perfectionist. Having thrived in a male-dominated, commission-based industry, I'm passionate about helping women boldly pursue their life goals. In this space, we build confidence with our mindset, manifestation, and spirituality. I believe that your life manifests as a result of who you are, not what you do, and that your personality creates your personal reality. Join this growing community to increase your net worth by increasing your self-worth. Now let's jump into today's topic. Hello, my beautiful souls, and welcome back to the Modern Manifestation Podcast. Today, I want to talk about a topic that comes up a lot for me. It's probably one of the hardest things I've had to work on in my journey of manifestation. And this is something that nearly everyone will encounter at some point as we are on our path toward creating the life that we want. There's one thing that can often get us tangled up, and that is control. The need for control or the illusion of control. Sometimes manifestation gives us the impression, and this is something I used to believe early on as well, and this is unfortunately the really ugly side of manifestation, is that it could give us this false sense of having the ability to feel like we can finally control every aspect of our lives. And for anyone that's a perfectionist, and I'm pointing to myself over here, that can be really tricky because all of a sudden we find this tool that might speak to something we so crave the ability to control. But the reality is that you can't ever really control things in order to get a very specific outcome. You can never achieve absolute control. We can influence, but we cannot conquer. We cannot force. And I know this sounds counterintuitive to things we've talked about on this podcast, so bear with me. The side of manifestation that I'm talking about is when we start to use this concept as an excuse to try to create our own personal checklist in life. Like we start using it as like, oh, well, there's this concept out here that can give me the things that I want. I'm going to now use that to force the things in my life that I want to have happen. So new job, manifest it. New house, manifest it. Boyfriend, manifest it. You're out there trying to manifest everything. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. What I'm saying is the issue is when you start to have this need to control the outcome. When you are struggling to let go of how it comes to fruition, or even if it comes to fruition. It's this desperate energy of it has to happen exactly this way, or it has to happen within this range or within these confines of what I want it to look like, and not being open to other things that could be more in alignment with what you want for yourself. There's no flexibility. You want to manifest that specific job. You want to manifest that specific guy. Like these are a la carte options that we can just predetermine, and we just need to use manifestation to get us these things. And I used to believe that you could use manifestation in this way, but time and experience has taught me that the universe often knows better than I do. And don't confuse this with clarity. Clarity is important, but knowing how you want to feel is even more important than that. A clear vision of how you want to feel is a very important part of the experience. But clarity does not mean specificity. It does not mean micromanaging each and every detail. And so when you're really into that need and that desire to force a specific outcome, that's when manifestation can start to feel like you have some sort of like cosmic shopping list. And you're just going through the list, checking off the things that you're trying to create in life, and it starts to, you sort of lose sight of what manifestation is all about. And when I first started learning about manifestation, I was all into saying things like, oh, I'm all about alignment, attracting what is similar, allowing, etc., etc. But I didn't really want that. I mean, I did, but subconsciously, I just wanted control. And I wanted to feel like I had more control over my life, control over how other people showed up, control over the outcomes that I was expecting. And so sometimes manifestation can feed that ugly side of ourselves that just really feels the need to grip and hold on tightly to certain outcomes that we really want for ourselves. And we don't have flexibility in what that looks like. And so maybe you were someone that started learning about law of attraction and you're like, finally, I found the formula that can help me dictate my life. But manifestation is not a tool for control. It's a co-creation process. And sometimes we get those things confused. And I get it. This desire to control is what usually draws a lot of people to manifestation in the first place. We want to feel like we finally have the steering wheel in our hands. But there comes a time when we need to start releasing this need and relaxing into allowing instead. Or in the famous words of Carrie Underwood, Jesus take the wheel, or rather, the universe take the wheel, whatever your thing is. And Abraham Hicks talks about this often in a lot of the books that they've written. Manifestation isn't about control. It's about allowing the universe to deliver in ways we could have never orchestrated for ourselves and being open to that. And if we're constantly trying to narrate what happens in our lives, we don't leave room for spontaneity or the beautiful expression of synchronicities. So this is the next step. And this is something I'm actively trying to work on for myself. And it's one of the hardest things for me to be open to. And it's one of the hardest things for me to try to relinquish because I just have this deep need to have my life turn out the way that I think it should. And this practice of letting go might also feel really uncomfortable to you at first because you might feel like it makes you too passive of a person. Or you might wonder if things won't turn out the way you want them to if you're not constantly wrangling for control. But the reality is that it might not anyway. In fact, trying to force something could be the very reason you're not getting it. It's this manifestation paradox. You try too hard and you don't get the thing. So at least if you're coming from a place of peace, happiness, joy, you have a much better chance of things working out in your favor. And control's rarely in the same room as those emotions. When you're peaceful and feeling joy and happiness, you rarely have the need to control something. So when we're trying to force very specific details, we're trying to manipulate variables, every outcome, we choke off the flow of energy. We're trying to force one outcome over another. We're trying to drive our personal preference and our opinions into what is in our reality. And not to say that it's not important to have preferences, but the difference is that we put more of an emphasis on what our preference is as opposed to what we're experiencing, what we're getting. Force creates resistance. And trying to force an outcome could be the very thing preventing it. So allow instead of forcing, because it's a very different energy. It's a much more powerful energy to be so comfortable with where you're at that you're allowing the things that are meant for you to come. And allowing doesn't mean sitting back passively and doing nothing. Allowing doesn't mean just not taking any action. It means aligning your energy so clearly with what you want that you wholeheartedly trust the universe to fill in the details for you. It means softening your grip, surrendering to the timeline that you're trying to create, releasing the how, and knowing that every atom of your being is resonating so consistently with who you are and what you want that anything that comes your way cannot help but be another tool to help you get there. That who you are being is so in alignment with everything that you want that any opportunity life brings you has to be in alignment with that thing. Last weekend, I finished a book by Michael Singer called The Surrender Experiment. And in this book, he describes how he stopped resisting what life had to offer altogether. And he took this to an extreme. Like at one point, he even let someone build a house on his land without his permission. Like they just started building before asking. And at first he was a little upset, but he sat with it. And then he came back the next day and helped them build their house. Like I said, radical acceptance. It's why he wrote a whole book on it. And then what was really interesting is that he took the perspective of if there's an opportunity that life is putting in front of me, because I know that I'm so strong in my energy and what I want out of life, there has to be a reason this is happening. And then later on, that house became the foundation for his yoga community. It was already on his land. He just was able to utilize it, and that person had moved out by then. And his point to this was that when you surrender, life unfolds more magically than you could ever plan. And I just thought this was a really radical example of complete and total surrender to the opportunities the universe brings you. Singer let go. He let life unfold without interference. And the more he surrendered, the more magical his life became. He trusted, and that trust created expansion in his life. It led to this entire journey he experienced that I thought was pretty incredible. Control is our false belief that we know best. And when our reality isn't reflecting what we think it should, we start to experience negative emotions like frustration, impatience, and jealousy, and all this shit. You thought that job would come faster. You thought your partner would already be here. You thought the money would have shown up by now. What the hell? But here's an analogy. Imagine you're in a river, and when you're allowing, you're floating downstream, you're supported, you're carried, you're relaxed. But when you're controlling, you're trying to paddle upstream. You're exhausted, you're frustrated, and you're just wondering why it's so damn hard. When you can just let go and allow, and just go with the current as opposed to trying to fight against it, trying to impart your will upon the direction you're going. And a personal example of this is my own experience in sales. The more I try to force outcomes, the less I succeed at what I do. And the years I've made the most money in sales are almost always the years when I say something like, I'm just going to show up authentically and keep taking the right actions. And it's when I forget that and I try to force other things to happen that things go awry. So let's reframe manifestation. It's not about micromanaging every detail. It's not about using it as a tool to dictate every facet of your life. It's about becoming the energetic match for what you want. It's about doing that inner work so that who you are being is going to be what resonates in your life, the reality that comes as a result. And trusting the details to unfold as they're meant to. When you're aligned, you don't have to obsess over the how, the when, or the who, because those answers will just come to you, often in ways that you could never have planned. So let go of the rest of the shit because it doesn't matter, and just focus on your internal state. Because the reality is, none of us are the CEO of the entire universe. We're the vessels through which possibilities flow. So we need to be open to being that vessel. So if you have an issue with controlling, try to put a stint in wherever that is and be open to flow, be open to the possibilities of what would happen if you let that go. And Eckhart Tolle has said several times in different videos, the more we resist the present moment, the more we suffer. The more we resist the now, the more we suffer. And trying to force an outcome will only delay it because we're trying to project the future. We're not trying to live in the present. So be the kind of person that has the life that you want. Trying to force an outcome will only delay it. So what if instead of gripping onto specific ideas for our lives or how things should manifest, what if we just focus on getting our energy there, our mindset, our health? What if we could release the need to manipulate outcomes and instead just focus on how we feel in the now? Not how we want to feel in the future, but how we feel right now, being present with that feeling. Because how we feel and who we're being, that vibration is what truly controls our lives. And when you stop trying to force outcomes, things actually start to fall in place. And this is the paradox of this whole concept, because you control the outcome better by releasing control. And that's the most frustrating thing about manifestation. The partner shows up when you're no longer obsessing about being alone. The money flows when you're no longer panicking about bills. The opportunity arises when you've released the pressure of needing it. When you're in a state of allowing, you become an open channel. And force is just an illusion that keeps you from fully allowing. So, how do we practice this? The first step is awareness. I always say that the more you become aware, the more you cannot help but change. Notice where you're trying to force something and catch yourself. Anytime you're trying to create an outcome, you're overanalyzing something, you're micromanaging, just notice that first. And second, soften. Ask yourself, what would happen if I allowed this to unfold instead of trying to push something? Relax into your body, your breath, your energy, because relaxation will shift your energy faster than overthinking ever could. So become aware and then soften into how would it feel to let go, to relax, and to just see what comes next, to be curious and to see how this unfolds. The next thing would be is to reframe. So instead of asking yourself things like, how is this going to show up? Or when is this going to show up? Things that make you feel as though you have a sense of direction for when things can come about, whenever you're trying to control when or how those things appear. Instead of those kinds of questions, maybe ask yourself, what's the most aligned step I can take right now? What would move me in the right direction? Because the universe loves aligned action, not frantic action. And the how and the when, that usually makes you do things that are not quite in flow. They're a lot more desperate. They're a lot more, oh God, what do I need to be doing right now? It's like that needy, that desperation energy. Whereas asking, what's the most aligned thing? That is a lot more settled in your energy. And the last thing is just trust. And I know this is the hardest part, and you're probably like, great, Brie, what the hell does that mean? Like, how do I just trust? That's for you to figure out. It comes with a lot of practice. I'm still working on this, but you have to start to trust at some point that you deserve good things. And you have to trust that the things you desire can come to you. And knowing that some of the things that you want might not come in the package that you're expecting, and being open to that. I think trust and letting go are the two hardest things about manifestation, but it's been such a journey for me to learn about myself and why I need to control certain outcomes and when that shows up the most in my life, and reasons in the past why those particular instances might trigger the need for control more than others. And so use this idea of trust, or of wanting to trust, to really start to ask your questions about where some of this is coming from. What do you need in order to start to feel more trustworthy? And maybe you start trying to build your relationship from the ground up. Maybe you ask for little signs here and there, and just really lean into what would it look like and feel like to have a full co-creative relationship with the universe. What would it look like to be a co-creator in your life and to have an established relationship with the world around you and the messages that you're getting? And remember, the universe has a much higher perspective than the one we do. So what feels like loss might actually be redirection. And what feels like a delay might actually be perfect timing. We need to get ourselves out of the way and just know that they're going to show up at the right time. I once had a traumatic situation happen in high school that redirected my entire life. And for a solid 3-4 years, I thought it was the worst thing ever. And then it wasn't until almost a decade after that I could see so many good things that I'd wanted in my life, and that would not have happened had that other incident not occurred. I couldn't see the full picture, but the universe could. It was planning 5 steps ahead. Thankfully, I eventually got over that. And as soon as I did, that's when things started moving in the right direction for me. So if you've been feeling resistance, if you've been frustrated with manifestation, check in. Where's control showing up? What could it be related to? Where are you holding on with a death grip in life? What worries make your body tense up? And then practice loosening your hold little by little. Journal, therapy, do any of the tools that you know how to do to start to ask yourself some deeper questions about this. And let life surprise you. Let the universe do its part. Because the more we surrender, the more we're going to receive. Control is just an illusion. We never really had it. But what we do have is choice. How we align, how we show up, how we respond to things in life. And the outcomes you're craving don't come by force. They come with releasing it, allowing. So let this be a reminder. You don't need a tighter grip. You need more trust. And when you stop trying to manage the universe, you finally let the universe work its magic. Thank y'all so much for hanging out with me today. Have a fantastic rest of your week, and I will catch y'all in the next episode. Until then, go out there and manifest some miracles. I hope y'all enjoyed today's episode. If you want to check out the show notes, head over to www.themodernmanifestation.com/blog. If you're loving this podcast, please drop me a review, share this episode with a loved one, and follow me on Instagram @modernmanifestation. I love y'all so much, and thanks for listening.